We've got Chris Parker with me right now, the legend who is focused on helping guys be themselves and get more dates with women. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris? Introduce yourself, talk about the business that you run.
Yeah, so first of all, it's super cool to be here. I honestly can't tell you how good it feels to be even asked to get on this call to share my experience. I feel honored to be like on a similar level to guys who are very inspiring to me, like other guys in the mastermind. Like we have like right Paul, Alex, and other guys who are just doing insane stuff, and I think they're
Right on.
where I would like to be, and I'm like, whoa, like we're almost sharing the stage. That's freaking cool. But yeah, just a little bit about me. Yeah, so like you said, I help guys with their dating lives. I help them build confidence, improve their appearance whenever necessary, but definitely to create connections with women as well as social connections. But really, like the goal is to create a much more vibrant and exciting dating life. Date the girls that they're excited to date. And what I think is one of the coolest parts is we do it without pretending to be someone you're not. Like, I know a lot of times dating advice encourages you to pretend that you're a DJ or that you like have some kind of job that you don't have. And while that might, get her attention for a night, you're going on a second date with this girl if it goes well, and how long can you pretend to be a DJ for, and I also think it
Right.
destroys your confidence in the process because you're like, damn, if she knew the real
Yeah.
me, she wouldn't like me. So like we really
Oh,
have
wow.
to kind of build the confidence while like teaching them how to connect on, yeah, like the real guy that he is. So that's a bit about, what I've been doing. I guess just some other stuff about me. I live in New York City. It's been super cool to be able to like live in such a cool city, which honestly, like just kind of starting from where I used to be, like I grew up in a terrible neighborhood. I didn't have any money, and I would walk around New York City as a kid being like,
Mhm.
whoa, like who lives here? That's insane. This is
Oh,
so different
wow.
than my world. And now I wake up, I'm like, wow, like this is my home, like this is my block, this is where I walk my dog. It's just like another world. But anyway, yeah, hopefully that's like
I love
helpful to
that.
get a picture of where yeah, who I am, I guess at this point.
I think it's super helpful. Why don't you kind of like share just a little bit, a snippet on why you like how you fell into this niche? How does that play into like what you do now professionally, how you help other people?
So I'll try to answer it as best as I can. So just a little bit of how I got into this.
Mhm.
So I was raised in a very orthodox religious world. I wasn't even allowed to talk to girls growing up, but
Oh, wow.
I don't know, a mix of puberty and I really don't know what it was. Girls just were so freaking attractive to me, and I couldn't stay away. So, I would try to talk to girls, but I found that I had some of my own issues. Like girls, some of the time like talking to me, other times we didn't really, neither one of us knew what to talk about, so the conversation led to nothing. But even there were so many times where I talked to a girl and we'd end up really good friends. And this
Okay.
girl would wait like 6 months or a year for me to make a move. And I was like, I don't know. Like, how do I know if she likes me? And this girl
Yeah.
would like come over all the time and watch movies and clear everything. And I was like, but how do I know? And I had no, I grew up without my dad. I never had an older brother or any like role model. I had no one to tell me, dude, she likes you. I had no one to guide me. Like so I was,
Right.
I'd end up with all these cool female friends, many of them who did like me, and I wanted to date, but I didn't know how to do that. So, eventually I did get a couple girlfriends, and I found that I needed more guidance. Like my first girlfriend, I do think she played a lot of manipulative head games.
Mm.
And I was bought into this mentality of like, well, if she's your girlfriend, shouldn't you believe that like love should conquer all kind of thing? Or like, like every relationship has problems, so like we have to work through it. But I do think that was maybe a relationship that I either didn't work through well, or maybe it would have been nice for somebody to say, you should probably just leave this one alone, like, and so
Okay.
that one didn't work out really well. And then it took me a while to get my second girlfriend. And this girl, also amazing girl, super interested in me, but it took me an entire year till we started dating. Even though I really liked her, like, she had to make the first move. And
Okay.
yeah, so when that kind of happened, there were points where, like, I really wanted, to work through the relationship, but I didn't know how to. And so even when we came up with challenges, I didn't know how to deal with them, and I also didn't know if it ended, like, could I get another girl? I was like, no, I'm gonna probably end up stuck for another 2 years single. So
Okay.
so it's like, work through this difficult relationship or end up alone for another several years. I was like, I know which one I want. And it just ended up with me staying over committing to relationships that I should have left. And so when that ended, it basically ended on my 21st birthday when, we got into a big argument. And so I needed some space from her, but it was my 21st birthday. So she still wanted to be involved. And then I'm already upset at her. But I guess to add to the mix, like, the best solution there was, like, to get messed up and make out with, like, another dude. And so I saw her making out with some guy on my birthday weekend, and that just shattered
Oh,
me. It was like, you know, to kind of, like, not ramble on about my story, just to make this make sense for anyone watching this, there comes a time, I think, where you hit rock bottom and you just realize you are never, uh, you can't do this anymore. You have to do something to shift your life because it's only getting worse. Like, if that feels like rock bottom, it feels like it in the moment, but it can get worse. And so I just got totally scared. And I realized that I really needed to do whatever I could to become a much better guy who knew how to deal with problems when they came up, but also attract girls who would who would never pull this crap to begin with. And so
yeah.
spent a lot of time working on this. I read countless books. Like, I became obsessed with basically moving as far away from where I was as possible. And in the process, it was quite a bit of a journey, but I did learn a lot about, meeting women, dating women, what kind of women to date, what kind of women to
Mhm.
not date. And I think it was like the rubber band effect. Like, I just flew to the opposite end of it where I was just dating so many girls.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of guys were, like, stuck along the journey that I had just, flew by. Like, I was just so dedicated to it. And now I've been helping guys. So I hope that wasn't like a rambly story, but, like, that's literally, I just been helping guys along
Yeah.
the different milestones that I had to walk through.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think it's rambly at all. I mean, I think the backstory is relevant simply because you lived this experience of like, I'm sure it played a role, right? And we don't have to unpackage all of it, of course, but like you mentioned earlier that you grew up with not having a lot, right? And so that sense of security, I'm sure maybe played a role in what you were looking for in a partner. And so like you couldn't have known then what you know now about these red flags and certain things about how you have to look inside, right? In order to kind of resolve that desire to feel fulfilled and like find a partner who is the better quality, somebody who's not going to jerk you around, or cheat on you or just play head games like you said. So I do think it's relevant. It's super
Absolutely.
important. And it just goes to show like necessarily why you are so skilled at what you do because you've lived through it. So you understand some of these like pitfalls and the bottlenecks that guys are going to go through in their path, I guess, to finding a partner or like just being more open to experiencing life and the connection aspect of things. So I think it's really beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. What do you,
Yeah,
let's go ahead
absolutely.
on that note. Let's go ahead and pivot into talking about like how you've decided to turn this into a business, right? So, can you share a little bit about your experience of working with the team, turning this model of let me help other guys with their dating life, you know, feeling like more confident in their connections. Basically, how did you pivot into turning it into a business? How did things change or unfold once you started?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I would say, first of all, the way I turned this into a business to begin with was,
Yeah.
I was actually studying medicine like when I was in school, and I decided
Okay.
that like it was consuming my entire life. And I started reading some business books, and I'm like, wait, more
Okay.
freedom than working 70, 80 hours in the hospital? Like it sounded like pretty sexy. And
Right.
especially when I was considering all the student debt and everything. So I really like started to kind of fall out of this headspace that like going through medical school was the path for
Yeah.
me. So I took a semester off, and in that time I decided to start helping some guys because I did believe, especially through tutoring, it was one of the ways I improved with studying the sciences, was helping others like by teaching them. If I understood it well enough to teach it, I knew my stuff. So I started teaching it to guys and
Okay.
helping guys. But I found that when I tried to help them for free, they were not committed. So I would
Right.
clear my schedule to come and meet them. And then we see one hot blonde girl. And they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot I had homework and I had my cousin needs my help. And they would just go home. I'm like, bro, I just came all the way out here for you. So so I would get
Okay.
really upset. So I was like, all right, we got to get some money on the line. You're going to pay me. I told them initially like $200 for a weekend or something. And I saw that
Right.
help. They were more committed. So at some point I raised it's like $500. And I was getting these guys the most insane results, like guys who never knew how to pick up a girl would pick up like, I'm not going to get graphic because it's a business call, but wow, like
Right.
these guys would just do things that I think most people would think is impossible. And
Oh, wow.
I was
Okay.
so proud of them. Like they would just, yeah. And, but then, I would have so many people refer me. And honestly, pretty quickly, I made like within a few months, let's just say 6 months, I started making like ten to $20,000 or something like that. But my prices were insanely low, and I was doing a
Wow.
lot of work. And I honestly was happy to do it. But then I would get this brilliant idea, and I'm like, you know what? I should get if I'm able to do this without any business coaching,
Mhm.
imagine what I could do if I got a business coach in the picture. So
Okay.
I'd signed up to work with some business coach, and he would just this whoever it was with would confuse the hell out of me. They would
Mhm.
teach me webinars and all these
Yeah.
things that like in many ways didn't even work for my niche. Like Facebook ads were very
Yeah.
complicated or and still are as far as I understand in the dating niche. So they
Okay.
not only would teach me something that was super technical, but
Mhm.
also when it came time to answer my questions, it seemed like many of them were too busy to answer my questions. So
Got
I
it.
would get stuck, and very quickly I would see like my business revenue or profit go from like ten to $20,000 all the way down to zero. And I would have all sorts of
Mhm.
confidence issues and all sorts of, now the belief issues that maybe this was even valuable because I had spent so long trying to build a webinar that I wasn't even really making too many sales anymore. So I didn't even have proof anymore that my offer was something people wanted. So, and then it would
Wow.
just be worse. And, there were a bunch of times where also like I had very some unsupportive coaches. So I had one
Mhm.
coach literally get on and tell me that I had a coach tell me that like my content sucked when I asked him for help, and he was brutal
Oh,
about it. And he even said, look, man, your content sucks. Like, no offense, but I don't think anyone would want this. And I was like, well, dude,
wow.
maybe it's because you're married that you wouldn't want this. And he's like, well, I'm not married anymore. Big surprise, his wife left him. But anyway, like, but he was saying that
Shade. There's no shade there.
he dude, he asked a whole bunch of other people on the call. He's like, yo,
Okay.
does anyone else who here's a single guy who would actually want
Wow.
this guy's training? And it was just
It's
like
rough.
everyone's like, no, 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 I would never buy this. And
Okay.
it just crushed my confidence even more. I'm like, damn, like maybe my thing sucks. And
Mm.
between unsupportive coaching and an unsupportive environment, anytime I had a question, maybe people in the group would shame me and be like, "Oh, this guy is a pervert. This guy is just another douchebag manipulating women." Like I thought that's what I was going to get. I literally had a conversation with my girlfriend like 2 weeks before. I don't know what kind of, I must be insane, like living in the past, thinking that just because this had good months before, that this is ever going to become something. And I told my girlfriend, I said, "Babe, like I love you for believing in me and staying here this whole time." I was like, "I don't even know what the hell you see in this situation because this looks like a mess." And I said, "But realistically, I think we both deserve better. And if I can't make this business work in the next couple months, I quit." And I think that's the strongest thing that I can do at this point is just accept when I lost. And I decided I was going to give it one last shot. And I had no idea how, but I knew it was going to happen. I was like, there's no way that this guy gives a crap. And I remember, also I had such insane client wins, like guys who would never date a girl, spend years getting rejected, go on like 30 dates in a month. And I
Oh
knew
wow.
that how that happened, right? One guy ended up with like five girlfriends. They all hung out together, knew each other and everything.
Oh my God.
And and I knew this is like the PG version of everything that's been happening too. But anyway,
Right.
I knew that the way that this happened was I was there for my guys and I was there to answer them their
Mhm.
questions. And when a girl was flaking on them, I said, "Bro, send me the message." And then I would write his message for him. And then the girl would end up coming out on the date. He's like, "Dude, thank you so much." I'm like, "All right, have fun." And then I would do that just for every single guy that came through. And as long as they took it seriously, these guys walked out with a life-changing experience. And I remember saying to my girlfriend, "I fucking wish that somebody would just care for my success the same way. Like hop on a call with me when I have a question, answer my questions when I have them like over DM. Don't make me wait 3 days to get an answer or tell me that, well, maybe your offer is just stupid." Like I was like, is there anyone in this damn market that cares? Kind of just traumatized that you could have
Mhm.
told me anything and I was just in fear. I was like a
Okay.
scared cat, or if you watch these videos on YouTube of like these or IG of like these traumatized animals from a shelter,
Aw.
like that
Yeah.
was me. And like you see them sometimes in the corner and you're like, "Hey little dog," like you try and it's like barking at you. I was like, that was me basically.
Okay.
I was so scared. And anyway, I get on and I decide like I'm just gonna give this one shot. Like I'm gonna do the payment plan. If it doesn't work, I'm not paying the rest. Like that's it. Like I'm gonna accept my loss and quit. And in my first
Mm.
month, my first 30 days for the month of January, because I signed up January 5th. And for the month of January, I made 3,000 and like $98 or something. So I already made was like in the profits kind of thing. But within the first 30 days, I broke $10,000. I was like, holy shit, like this works. That's crazy. And then same thing, like I could actually even pull up the numbers, but yeah, like same thing for February to March. I made another like, I think like I can't remember what it was, but I know by the end of my 90 days, I made 30 grand. And I was like, that's unbelievable. And honestly, it's been like amazing ever since. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. When you first started, you already had some semblance of a business model and maybe not enough strategy on like how to
Oh,
frame your
yeah.
offer and package it and the pricing. When you joined, were you still charging really low rates or how did that play out?
So, yeah, I would say two things that I really, well, one, just kind of taking a step back, because this was
Mhm.
a huge reason why I signed up as well, was the reason why I was getting sales to begin with was because I had a lot of proof that my method worked and that when I taught it to someone else, to me, it worked for them too. And I
Mm.
resonated with you get a great result and you market that great result. And I was like, it's very result based. And I thought that was exactly how I wanted to market, especially because in my industry, there's so many people who like to talk about what works and what doesn't work and,
Mm.
all sorts of great advice. But where's the result at the end of the day? Like, did people get what they paid for? And so I love that. So that was one of the things that I really connected with. In terms of my pricing, no, I definitely like it was crazy. Very quickly, I was charging way too low. I remember, for example, a lot of people wanted to work with me live, but I didn't want to work with them live because
Mhm.
I didn't think anyone would pay what I would want. And it wasn't worth what I was charging anymore. So I was charging $2,500 for one spot to work with me for a weekend. And they would get an insane result, but I would take these guys out, let's just say I bring them to a nightclub and maybe they like, yeah, I mean, for all the women here, like, just forgive this. Like, we would bring back, like, let's say a few, three girls in a night or something like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
I would not end my night until like 7 in the morning. And
Oh my
then it would just,
goodness.
so that would be like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? Because like
Mhm.
by the time the party basically ended, yeah, and it would be like 7 in the morning. And I was like, that's a lot of time. Like, I don't want to give these guys a worse result, but I want to give them the quality experience that I think would change their life. But I can't do that for 2,500 bucks. It's like, just even if I got like two guys, so maybe I'd make 5K, it would throw off the whole rest of the week. It throw off all my
Mm.
routines. During the week, my hours would be screwed up. It was crazy. Like, I told people 5K and they would be like, done, let's do it. And I was like, wait, what? And then I even raised my prices again at some point and asked for 7K, and people were like, done. And it was like, it made me mind blown at, like, dude, I was charging $500 for this. Like, like, I couldn't believe it. Like, when I first started, I couldn't believe it. And it really showed me a lot about like value is, like what, like, there's a lot of things that we think are not worth that much or that people wouldn't pay for that much because we're so used to it,
Right,
or
right.
because of what our competitors are charging, even though their product might not be as good. But you're like, this is the norm. Like, who am I to ask for more? But it was just totally a case of like, I just didn't know how to position it. I didn't know how to, explain to someone why it was worth a tremendous, like, such a valuable thing. And then they would say like, yeah, totally, it's totally worth it, like, it's going to be life changing. And then you actually give them a price that would warrant such a life changing experience. I was like, okay, I'll do all that for you, 500 bucks. It was like, dude, like, what? It was just insane. And so then there came a point where Bastion shifted my mind even more, and he said, like, look, remember, like, stop focusing so much on price. Like,
Mhm.
the point really is to help them. And that kind of shifted my mind a bit about, like, well, if my goal is to help them, maybe I should stop thinking about selling a weekend program. Like, maybe what these guys need is a life changing experience. And I know if they hang out with me for a month, their life would be completely different. I can't offer them that because it's just not practical for the rest of my life. But I was like, what if I help them for 6 months? And I had a few guys sign up for like 15 to 30K programs. And then it ended with the payment plan was like 30K. And people are like, what? People pay 30K for dating advice? And I'm like, dude, I know it's crazy. Like, this is like but the life changing experience that they get for
Right.
them, it's worth it, right? And I would say, just to like justify it, even, it's like guys who don't pay that end up a lot of times struggling to find a date for years. They can't get any girls, and then they end up finding a girl who eventually will date them, and then they end up with a 50% chance of divorce, which costs them way more than 30K. We don't have proof of concept that this avoids divorce altogether, but I will say most of my guys don't have an issue finding a girl who's insanely loyal to them, loves being around them, and will give anything to be with them. And I would say not only for the lifetime transformation, but even that one relationship alone is probably worth way more than that. So honestly, it's definitely been like a huge shift to stop thinking like about the money and start thinking about their transformation, and then just trying to find something that's fair for the value of that they would get.
I love that. I think that's so beautiful. I mean, I think a lot of people who do desire partnership and connection without anything being deceptive or gimmicky or, being fake or anything like that, I do think that it's worth way more than 30K. At least I'm speaking from like my own lived experience. I think if I, way back when, old me, before I got married, if I had some sort of roadmap or like somebody in my corner as a Cyrano telling me what to say in order to, encourage, inspire me, and like just keep me on track so that I could get a date, but I don't have to sift through hundreds and hundreds of like Tinder opportunities, right? Then I don't know. It's, to me, that's a no brainer because it leads to the authentic connection and relationship. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's basically priceless. I don't know that you can put a price tag on it. So I think
Totally.
that's
I mean,
awesome.
and I think there's a lot of us who can think back to like even a few dates that we went on with girls who were just our dream girl. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we would probably have
Yeah.
spent like $1,000 at least just for that one girl to know it would work out. And that's not even including the
Yeah.
dates and everything. Like I think we would spend quite a lot of money knowing that this girl was perfect for us in many ways, and we screwed it up. We didn't know what to talk about. The window of opportunity was there and we missed it. When I describe the relationship that I have with my girlfriend, and when I just describe that to people and they hear the relationship, like for example, that like she's supportive, she knows my whole business, she'll do anything for me, we meet girls together, stuff like that, whatever. And
Right.
and and they tell me, whoa, if you can teach me how to do that, I pay 30K for that. I'm like, whoa, like my relationship is like that value. Like it's cool to see like people
Right.
would pay that to have that, but this is ordinary life for me. Like this is just the life that I built. And this, Chris Parker, who's 19 and getting ignored and cheated on, like he's in the archives, like he's part of where I started. But like that guy is
Right.
so long ago that this is what my life has been, that I almost, it's, yeah, sometimes it could be hard to even realize what the value you're sitting on. I actually remember meeting one guy who was like a really good closer, and we were just chatting as friends. Like he wasn't trying to pitch me or anything. And he was saying, this was at the like infancy of my business, and he was saying, you know what I feel like talking to you? He's like, I feel like you're sitting on like a chest full of gold, and you have no idea what you're sitting on. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why? People pay me $500. It's not that much money.
Right.
And it was like, no, I really have something that a lot of guys seem to resonate with, and not just like the messaging, but like again the offer delivery thing, like the fact that I can deliver such a life-changing experience and it being authentic, and we don't have to manipulate anyone and we don't have to lie, and like you just learn to be a confident version of you and express yourself in a way that women just absolutely love and feel flattered by and they want to be a part of, and not just for like a date, like a lot of them like literally fall in love kind of thing, and she can't
Right.
get this anywhere else because most guys don't care to become this guy. So
Right.
it's really like such a unique thing to help these guys become someone that not only I know benefits him but also benefits all the women that they meet, and to be able to kind of have that impact on mankind. I don't think it's like an exaggeration to say that that's what's happening here.
I love that. I think that's so inspiring. When you think about, you know, your your journey, like your entrepreneurial journey and how you got started, obviously the old Chris versus the new Chris, right? What do you think is like one main thing that you wish you'd known when you were getting started in your entrepreneurial journey, going in the direction of becoming a dating coach? Like, what's something that back then, one thing could have helped you a little bit sooner?
It's a really good question.
Main reason I
Um,
ask is, we've got others who are pursuing like, do I want to be a dating coach or do I want to be a life coach or this or that? And so maybe there's a takeaway that you're able to provide, you know.
so one thing that I wish I had learned sooner. mm, It's a really good question. I don't know. I would say if I were to just pull something out, I have no idea, honestly. I mean, obviously, I could say things like, yeah, I wish I knew to charge more.
Mhm.
But if there's one thing that I wish I knew sooner, honestly, this is the authentic answer. I wish that I had more people telling me to I wish I had more people encouraging me to take care of myself more than take care of my business. Because
Mm.
there were a lot of times where I came across advice that was like, like be willing to eat shit for years so you could eat caviar for the rest of your life and work
Yeah.
16 hours a day, like grind, grind, grind. And I thought that that's what it would take to be a committed entrepreneur. And I was willing to sacrifice it all to be this guy. And that's basically what I did, except along the way, I was no longer the it's a little difficult to explain. There were a lot of times where I was not dealing with things that were going on in my life that I do believe every entrepreneur is probably going to encounter. Like there's going to be times where your family will need you, and there's going to be time where you need to go and eat a freaking meal and get away from the computer and maybe go hit the gym and maybe go on a date and go hang out with your friends. And there were
Mhm.
all these areas of my life that were getting ignored because I wanted to grow my business. And there was a very long time where even though I was making money, I was not happy because at the end of it, I had the money, but I didn't have a life that I was happy to be part of anymore. And
Oh, wow.
I wish that there was more that I that there was more of an emphasis to, especially from a place of having a personal brand, to take care of the person who's growing this brand and to keep growing more as a person because these guys were trying to be like me. They were trying to date girls and have a great social life. And even that, for a time, I was giving up to grow this business so that I could achieve something that I hadn't before and help all these guys. But there was, like I said, almost no emphasis. Like they would say, sounds like you really need a break. Take some time off. Like you made 30
Mm.
grand this month. And then yeah, and I would burn out. But now that I take care of myself regularly, like I hit the gym first thing in the morning, like I think, 5:30 in the morning, I couldn't have ever imagined getting up at 5:30. But I get up at 5:30, I hit the gym, I take a cold shower, I meditate for a half hour. I'm very, very clear on what I want to accomplish. And now I can not only show up with all sorts of energy
Mhm.
and confidence and enthusiasm for life that makes me want to show up every day. But I could also help my clients even better because I'm not like a guy who's dying on the way to success.
Yeah.
So, if there's anything that I do wish there was more of an emphasis on, it's realizing that if you don't take care of the person who's growing the company, the person will probably not be growing the company for too long. And I actually read, a book called High Performance Habits recently by Brendan Bouchard or something. And he was saying, a lot of times people place, high performers, people who are like really type A personality, want to achieve, they sacrifice their health, their sleep, their diet in order to achieve success. And he says, but there's no one who achieved success as a result of sacrificing it. They achieved success despite sacrificing it, but those things did not help. It made it harder for them. And when you take better care of yourself, you can perform better. So now, I still might put in very similar hours, 8, 10 hours perhaps, but I feel amazing almost the entire time really. Like I feel unstoppable, I feel excited, and now I can do what I was doing before, but just so much from a different place. And also, it gave me the ability, because before I was like, I'm growing this business, but honestly, I'm burning out sometimes doing it. And I feel like I'm losing myself in the business. Like I'm losing who I am as a person to my business. But then as I kind of focused on myself a bit more, I realized what I wanted. And now I'm like, dude, I want industry domination. Like I want to dominate my industry and like be one of the most influential people, because I truly believe that the journey that I walk is one that most people have not walked, even within my industry, and that they're giving advice on very little experience, but I can actually change these guys' lives. And I have the results to show it. That so it's like, dude, you are playing way too small. Like, and I owe it to myself to hit the gym and journal and eat healthy. I don't know how to say that word. Anyway, and eat properly, so that I could show up for my guys and do what I believe at this point is almost like a divine obligation. Like something from the universe wanted me to do this. And now it's like this needs to be done. And so I feel like whether it's true or not, like I this is how I show up every day. So long story short, I really do believe, yeah, like this was a very necessary point that I wish I would have learned a long time ago.
Do you think that for yourself, maybe you had to kind of go through some of these like low points, or, have to face that burnout or hit that rock bottom in order for that to happen for you? Where you realize
Uh
that you needed to take better care of yourself and kind of just give yourself that space and that compassion?
Possibly, not necessarily. I think I needed to like at this point, it's what happened. So like parallel
Right.
universes don't really matter. At the same time, I do think that if maybe I had maybe even seen more of that within the entrepreneur community, seeing people like encouraging, like take care of your health, like take
Right.
care of, like it's not just take a day off, like even go deal with some of your problems. Like yeah, so to some degree, absolutely. Like I needed to experience it to be ready for it. At the same time, I also feel like a lot of things, if you just become a certain type of person, they probably would have never bothered you to begin with. You would have never, maybe like for example, if you're a more muscular person, you don't need to necessarily learn how to take a punch and be ready for it. But like if you get punched and you're muscular, it might not hurt that much, you know?
Right.
So, but I would say there's some things that really I didn't know how to be prepared for. And these are some of the things that actually
Yeah.
also made it kind of lonely, maybe within my own industry. But I don't think I'm the only one who has to deal with it. Sometimes, like hate comments, it would really get
Right.
to me. I didn't know, especially like I would experience a lot of love in my life. And then I would get on, like I would meet girls who just love being around me, people in real life who would love being around me. And then I would put up a video and they're like, this guy's voice, he sounds like a pussy or something like that. I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
Like,
Ouch.
or like blur that word out, whatever. But like, that's
Okay.
literally,
Yeah.
they would be like, dude, this guy's a loser. This guy,
Mhm.
right? Literally the other day, I put up a video and I was saying how, I used to be very insecure around everyone, but particularly women, that I grew up without my father, that I never really knew my father.
Mhm.
And I felt so unloved that if I did tell anyone, I thought that they would be like, dude, this guy is not worth loving. So I'm not going to love him either. And
Ouch.
I thought
Yeah.
if anyone knew that, they would just instantly reject me. And so, but it was one of the things that I had to learn how to share because it was part of my history. And it bonded me to people a lot of times. Like I would tell it to a girl and she'd be like, I was never close to my dad either. And this girl and
Oh,
I
wow.
would form borderline what I would call like a soulmate like connection. Like it would just be like instant, this powerful connection just by sharing some of the darkest sides. And instead of learning how to hide them, I learned how to share them and connect over some of them. Anyway, I made a video sharing that, and somebody's like, no one gives a fuck about that your father never loved you. And he was telling me about how like some people have real problems, and like he finished off that with a pretty negative comment about himself. So clearly he's going on with dealing with some pretty personal stuff. But I'm like, dude,
Right.
like, excuse me, like, thank you, bro. Like, sometimes I'll
Yeah.
wake up and somebody will be like, dude, you're an idiot. You're a fucking ugly idiot or something. And like I'll wake up and I'm like, all right, well, good morning. Let's start today, you know?
Right.
And I do think that by ignoring that and going back to work, I was not dealing with it. And I had to learn to develop, like you said, even a good word like compassion for myself, compassion for the people who are hating on me, realizing that they had their own pain and suffering.
Mhm.
And I had to find better ways to deal with it and not just cope and not just take the punch and keep moving like I think a lot of people encourage. It
Right.
was learn to almost like absorb it and just grow from it and release, a lot of it. And so I work on that every day. Some of my meditations I do are like trauma meditations, like to just let it go because I don't want to hold on to it. And I do hear that other entrepreneurs have similar comments. Like I've heard some pretty disgusting stuff that people get on their Facebook ads and their videos, especially from cold
Right.
traffic. And so I don't think I'm unique in that way, but I also think it's one of those things that, maybe your friend who has a 9 to 5 job never really had to deal with that. And sometimes it feels like you don't know how to deal with it because unless you're dealing with other entrepreneurs who are kind of putting out, content at scale like that, perhaps, like they're not really getting that same level of hatred sometimes. So, like I said, like kind of learning how to take care of me as opposed to like, well, but we still have 8 hours of more calls. So, like, or the inbox is full. So let's just go and deal with that because I don't have time to
Yeah.
deal with my feelings. Like, no, I had to learn how to deal with my feelings. And I had to accept that sometimes it really did hurt to hear those kinds of things and that it was okay. And this, give myself that compassion and, you know, realize that that person is hurting. Like one of the girls on the mastermind call said, I can't remember exactly, but she said like hurt people hurt
Mhm.
people. And I
Right.
was like, damn, like, okay. So then I even had to like take some personal time and even create a value system. Like what kind of person do I want to be when I show up every day? And then I kind of wrote out this whole list of like my values. And I wrote one that I thought was made me more of a role model so that I a person that I'd be proud of. So like I made a rule. It was a value. It was be kind to everyone, or at least don't hurt them. And it was hard, and it's still hard. I fail at this sometimes. People tell me I'm an ugly mother effer, and I'm like, and I have to just be like, okay, that hurt. And all right, well, I hope you have a better day, or I hope you get to look at more beautiful people today. Enjoy, and
Yeah.
just like I don't need to start telling this person how much that comment was disgusting and uncalled for. Like, it's not my place to put this guy in his place. And it was kind of like I was talking to my mom, even like she was saying, sometimes you see these arguments, by the end of it,
Mhm.
you don't even know who the bigger idiot is. And
Right.
I was like, yeah, exactly. Sometimes I feel like an idiot. So I decided, you know what, be a role model. And it's a similar thing when I help these guys who I coach. There's a lot of times where they go up to a girl and she gives them such a rude reaction. She's like, "You're ugly
Oh,
and
wow.
short, get away." And I'm like, dude, do not get into a shouting match about how she should be nicer, she's rude. That's not no way to treat a person. I'm like, dude, just like wish her the best and move on to a better girl. Like, do not get caught up in that. And so anyway, I do believe that focusing on me has not only allowed me to engage with my brand better, but also be a role model and be able to pass down harder lessons to learn to my guys. And I do think that's part of being a leader is being willing to be the first one to go through the fire and
Yeah.
be able to help all those who maybe weren't brave enough or didn't know how to walk that path, or whatever. But it's definitely been humbling, I would say the least.
I think that's awesome. And I can only imagine just like how inspired your clients and then all the people that you ultimately get on, these sort of like growth calls, or I'm not sure how you frame your sales calls necessarily, but just to kind of unpackage and help explore, how you might be able to transform this person's life, give them that transformation that they're looking for, or that outcome or that result, right? For them to ultimately kind of unwrap or unpackage what their goal really is, right? Excuse me, whether that's to like get more dates or to find, I guess, the girl of their dreams. I know I've seen some of your results and case studies, and I know this isn't the outcome for like 100% of them, but a few of them, if I'm not mistaken, end up getting married, I think, or have been in these relationships really, really long time. So it's not, I
Yeah.
think that's kind of another aspect that really makes you different in the market, that you don't, promote or focus or prioritize only like, hey, I'm going to get you laid, and XYZ additional things that are kind of, I guess you could say, scummy and not super authentic. So I think that's another reason why me specifically, I really connected very deeply with you, since we were part of like Bastion's core offer program a long, long time ago. And that really resonates for me, because you're such a legend, like you're so legit and you're a real person. I can tell that like a lot has changed for you. You've grown so much as a human. I just love that. So I wanted to ask you, as far as your, the way you do things, because you were sharing like you've been reading High Performance Habits, I think you called it. I haven't read that book, but I know that Brendan, who's really like focused on productivity and developing really good habits and everything, I think he even has kind of like a journal or some sort of tracking like
Right.
notebook or something. I haven't used it, but I am loosely familiar. Do you have some sort of like routine or tool or system that maybe you could shed some light on that you teach your clients to use, that is similar to the way you're doing things, so you can wake up early, so that you can show up for yourself, so that you can get, like a better experience, I guess, in life and feel more outgoing or kind of get out of your shell? Like, what does your routine or system look like?
Yeah, so this is something that I actually started passing down to my guys as well, which is something that I recently discovered. It's the concept of a 5-year plan, or I guess what other people called a vision, that I never really
Okay.
connected with. I never knew what my vision was. And this, I think, a lot of people might really resonate with. For a long time, I was so focused on dealing with, well, everything that needed to be dealt with that day or that week. And the concept of 5 years from now was way too far ahead. How could I think about 5 years from now? I got to pay rent this month, or, I got to pay, you know, I got, other people watching this maybe have kids, and so on. They're thinking about what they got to get through, like right this minute, or right this week, or maybe right this year. And I was definitely that way until I had a serious conversation with someone, and I realized that everything I do today depends on where I want to be in 5 years from now. And there's a great book that I've read maybe 15 times, and I think it's one of the best books ever written. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Okay.
And he talks about 4 quadrants. He says that there's basically important and non important and urgent and not urgent, right? And they kind of map out into 4 quadrants, right? And so it's like quadrant number one would be important and urgent, right? Quadrant number two would be important but not urgent. And then there would be like not important and not urgent and not, I don't know which ones I said already. But anyway, most people, he says, deal with either things that are not important and not urgent, like watching Netflix and being on TikTok. And it's not important and it's not anything pressing that needs to happen now. And they just numb themselves into this reality. And then,
Mm.
other times they focus on things that are not important and they're urgent, like their friend's drama, you know, that it really is not adding any value to their life. Their friend probably should stop thinking about it too. But they focus on things that are not important at all. And he says, but those people are pretty productive for the most part. I'm paraphrasing. They focus on things that are important and urgent, right? Paying the bills, making sure your kid does their homework, all these things, focusing on what your clients need now. But he says what doesn't get focused on that much is the things that are important but not urgent. Your 5-year plan is not where you end up in 5 years from now is not urgent, but that is important. And when my friend suggested this to me, I was like, dude, I can't think about 5 years from now. I could barely get through this week sometimes. Like, I got to deal with all the calls that I have booked in. And it's like all these things were so pressing in my face. And I realized, well, dude, like, I have to get clear on this. And I kept telling to my friends, like, I feel like I have no integrity. And I don't think they knew what I meant. And even I didn't really know what I meant. I just felt like I didn't know what I stood for. Like, whatever needed to get done, I would get done. But I felt like I had no boundaries in my life. I had no way I knew how to live my life. So if my business needed me to work 16 hours, I was going to work 16 hours. And if it needed me to do that 5 days in a row and skip my meals, I was going to do that because I had no personal standards of like how I wanted to live my life. And sometimes I would work 16 hours and somebody would send me a dumb comment and I would blow up at them because I had no standard for how I wanted to behave and no maybe SOP. Like how do you deal with this? And so basically, I created this 5-year plan that honestly it gets me so excited to look at who Chris Parker is going to be in 5 years from now. And I can't wait to get this guy in the world. So, and then I kind of worked back. I was like, well, how does this guy act every day? you know and I realized this guy, he gets up at 5:30 every single day, maybe even earlier. And I've crafted this guy who now I'm working every day to become. He gets up at 5:30 because this guy's a beast. And he meditates for 30 minutes to deal with his emotions and everything going on inside so that he can be a true leader for everyone he interacts with that day. He doesn't blow up at anyone because he dealt with his emotions privately. Like this is how this guy acts. He goes and hits the gym because he values his health. He values his appearance too. He likes looking in the mirror and be like, damn, this is a sexy guy. Right.
Yeah.
But I deal with my stress privately. Like, again, like these are things that matter to me because I don't, it really bothered me that I realized there were times where like somebody would say some screwed up thing to me and I would go and say something screwed up back because I was like, who do you think you are to say that to me kind of thing. And then I realized that guy would probably go home to his wife even more frustrated and be with his kids even more frustrated and out talking about this idiot that he ran into on the subway. And now instead of this guy being like, I met a true upstanding citizen, really inspired me to be a better guy, this guy is pissed. And now his wife probably, doesn't get quality time with him that night, goes to school to teach her kids if she's a teacher or if she's a nurse and she deal with the patients. And now she's a bit irked. And now she pisses off some of the patients and the kids go to school the next day. I'm like, dude, like, I don't even know if I have that impact, but I probably do more than I realize. I'm like, and that ripple effect disgusts me. I'm like, that's not who I want to be. So I realized that, number one, I got to deal with my shit privately and not add to other people's problems. And I want to be resilient enough that people can take their shit out on me and I could absorb it and I'd be okay and grow from it. And yeah. And so anyway, I think the answer to your question, even though it was a very long answer so far, it was like, to make a long story short, right? I had to get, I think you have to get clear on who do you want to be in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, and every day, and like create somebody who excites you so much that you can't wait to bring this guy into the world, and you can't believe that you're going to become him, but you are excited as anything. And get clear on how this guy behaves, and every single day behave more like him. And it's going to be difficult, like that's for sure. And the way I see it is, it's like the universe testing you, right? It's the universe saying, oh yeah, you want to treat people nicely, well, I'm going to send you a guy who's going to tell you you're fucking ugly, let's see how you handle that. and
Right.
and you have to be like, okay, but universe, or whatever you believe in, or whatever, I meant it. When this guy is going to tell me I'm an idiot, I'm going to handle it well. And it's a test. And it's like weights at the gym. Like, you are going to be tested to break your form. And it's not going to be easy, but like, this is how we grow. And so in the morning, I don't want to wake up for the gym. So I throw myself into a cold shower. I'm like, dude, wake up. Like, remember, we want to be this guy. And I think the thing that's so cool about it is I never push myself anymore. I'm attracted, almost like I'm pulled, like I get yanked out of bed, because this guy who I want, it's almost like maybe if you have like tickets to go to like Disney World or something, and you don't have to drag yourself out of bed. You're excited to go to Disney World. You could barely sleep the night before, kind of. That's how I feel like life has shifted to, as I got clear on who Chris Parker is going to be in 5 years. And yeah, the goal is to do things like, hit $100 million in annual revenue. That excites me. And I also am kind of clear on why, but a lot of it has to do with the kind of guy I want to be. This guy has revolutionized my entire industry and has created a pathway for guys who have been struggling with women to now communicate with them better, which I know will help both men and the women that they interact with, because it's what works, based on authenticity, based off what women actually like and how they actually want to be treated. This guy is an absolute genius marketer. And I know that when I invest money into another coach, or when I get on calls with you guys, it's not because I have to. It's because I'm working toward becoming this guy every single day. And it's interesting because I'm doing very similar stuff to before. A lot of things are different, but some things are very, very similar. But the place that it is coming from is just absolutely different. And I think a lot of it has also way less to do with taking, because before I felt like, how much money can I generate? And now it's
Right.
like, how much can I transform this market? How can I take everything that I can today and give more value to the market than my competitors could ever even dream of? And while they're busy trying to count their dollars, how can I fill up my clients' life with more success? And I know that the effect is probably that I'll get paid more and compensated for that, but that's so the byproduct at this point. It's like, how can I create a much bigger impact? So like, I think where it all shifted was, like I said, trying to place more emphasis on who I am as a person, what does this guy accomplish, and also like, what kind of contribution do I want to have in this world, essentially. Because there were moments where I felt like I wasn't worth a whole lot. And I think it was moments when I was trying to get as much as I could out of this world, as opposed to how much can I get back? How much can I change my industry versus how much can I get people to pay me? Can I increase my prices so I could be more than my competitors? It's like, dude, you know what? Maybe I even want to be cheaper than my competitors and give more. Maybe, like
Right.
maybe it was like, how can I serve my clients better than absolutely anyone? And as you probably are aware, like 3 months ago, my entire business got deleted, which really freaked me out because Meta, right, shut down my Facebook and Instagram all in one day. And I
Oh,
lost everything.
wow. I
Yeah.
knew about the Instagram. I did not know it was both Facebook and Instagram. That's crazy. So you rose like a phoenix.
So basically, there were a couple things that happened. Number one, because my Instagram somehow got deleted, and no one can really
Mm.
figure out how. Because normally, if you do something wrong, they ban you, and then you appeal it or whatever. I just totally got deleted. But because my Facebook was linked to my Instagram, I lost both.
Oh
And I
wow.
lost access to my groups. I lost access to my group chats with all my clients. Everything got shut down. And oops, oh hey. So yeah, and it gave me time to really reflect on like what was important to me as well. And yeah, the first month I kind of, my first month rebuilding, I made 7K, which was a huge dip. And my next month I made 6K. And I wasn't even a little bit nervous really. Like even when people were not signing up because my sales skills were a bit rusty, and it was all very new traffic with a brand new profile that had no credibility. Like I had 20
Right.
followers, and it was like, okay, this guy's claiming to have all these great results. It's probably fake, right? Like who would have not thought that? I showed up. Like there was a moment where I was getting a little bit frustrated, but I remember I went like 16 calls and like one sign up, and I was just laughing by the end of it. I'm like, this is like a joke at how they're not signing up. Like it was laughable. I had questions at one point. I was like, dude, am I like crazy? Like maybe I don't have anything here anymore. Nah, you're doing great. Like just keep at it. And it really helped guide me along the way, like keep my head in the right direction. And I this past July, I finished the month at 42K, which was basically a record, depending on how we want to look at it. I made 150K month last year, which kind of fell over into like because the guy like delayed his payment got stuck as the weekend or something like that.
Okay.
So it never hit my account until like the second day of the next month. So it kind of ended
Right.
up being like a 30K month and then like a 20K month kind of thing or whatever.
Okay.
So I'm kind of still counting it because it was like a weekend delay. But if we didn't want to
Yeah.
count it, my max month would technically be with Bastion like 30K. If we want to count it, my max was 50K. This was, in a sense, almost a record. It was definitely one of the records, being my third month
Wow.
back, and one of the biggest rebuilding from zero, basically. I think again, like I came back with like way more confidence and way more charisma and everything because I had time to take care of myself and get clear on what position I wanted to have in the market and not just how much money I wanted to make, but the kind
Right.
of impact I wanted to have and the type of person I wanted to be for these guys and not just for them, for myself. Like I had to also kind of say, I don't care who my clients want me to be. Like, who do I want to be?
Yeah.
Not not who are they willing to pay. It was like, who do I want to be? Forget about the money. So
I love how your approach and like your methodology isn't necessarily like, do X number of jumping jacks or do this at this time and then this at this time. Like those, I think, are minor details that it sounds like you were getting up to take a shower, obviously to like wake yourself up and then go to the gym for a certain portion of time throughout the day, right? And then you were still doing what was necessary that was business related. But I think it's important to note that like in your experience, even during this window of time where you had to rebuild and you didn't have a choice, right? There was this value-based decision making going on behind the scenes for you in order to stay aligned with who is Chris Parker 5 years from now, so that every decision that you're making in that routine throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout whatever you're evaluating in your business, it aligns for you as a business owner or an entrepreneur, and then also like the way you serve your clients. So I think that's really awesome, and it helps put into perspective how the entrepreneur and what's going on in their personal life really does impact the flow of the business and its ability to scale and grow. What would you say is a myth right now that exists in the dating world that is false, that it just annoys the shit out of you? You're just like, God, I wish other dating coaches would stop saying this or stop talking about this.
there's a lot. There's a
You
lot.
can name a
But yeah,
couple.
just
Maybe you have like some pet peeve ones.
For sure, for sure. By the way, to finish up, just the like for the last point, like
Yeah.
Stephen Covey calls that begin with the end in mind. You know, like you start your journey with knowing how you want it to end. You know, and so you take steps toward it every day. But yeah, to answer your question, there's a few things. The first one that really bothers me because I have a very personal experience with how it messed with me was number one, that is, I mean, the blanket way to say this is that just to pretend to be someone you're not, to share stories that are not yours because it worked for the dating coach, so now you're going to pretend to be a DJ. He pretends to be a DJ, now you're going to pretend to be a DJ too. And great, like, so it's like sharing stories that are not yours or using scripts, and like we see it in our inbox where, you
Okay.
know, we get like all sorts of scripts all day long. Hey Aiden, so how long have you been doing your business? And it's like, oh my god, here we go again, you know? And I don't know if that's how
Right.
you react, but I'm like, okay, this guy's clearly very new. He just bought somebody's sales training and now he's starting his journey. And, you
Yeah.
know, for girls, especially really hot girls, I think they see just hundreds of those same scripts, but applied to dating. And it's just the lamest shit ever. It's like, dude, just like you have to learn to create your own conversation. Like stop trying to like go for a quick fix of having somebody else's conversation. Somehow that's going to get you
Mhm.
to her into your bedroom and into your dating life. The scripts are going to run out, bro. Like what are you going to do? Like you don't have a script
Okay.
for like the next 20 years. So like that really bothers
Yeah.
me that people sell scripts that are just obviously a short-term fix. And the crazy thing is I think a lot of guys when I talk to them, they don't even that's the first time it dawned on them that that was like a short-term solution that was never going to
Oh,
lead
wow.
anywhere long term. Yeah, they're like, "Oh wow, you're right. Like what am I going to do?" After our second date when she actually
Mhm.
finds out because they've never made it that far because
Okay.
they're using these things that are obviously not authentic, and it's kind of like, you know, acting. Most people are not good actors, so if you give them a script and they try to play a movie scene, they're going to be like, "Oh, Hannah, yes, I will get the coffee," and like they just sound super scripted. And like they're obviously a bad actor. Not
Yeah.
everyone's a Leonardo DiCaprio. So like, sure, you give him a script, I'm sure he'll own it. But most people just get up and they sound like an idiot. And the girl's like, and I remember even like saying it myself, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
whatever, like stupid stories I read online and shared. I remember girls like my brother literally shared that same story to another girl. I'm like, well, that's embarrassing. Stupid video
Okay.
I did, you know? But yeah,
Mhm.
so I'd say the biggest myth is that you have like that. I think honestly, like the biggest myth is really that you need to pretend to be someone else other than yourself. But I think where it plays out is like, I mean, we all have things that we about ourselves that are don't sound sexy, or and we many of them
Right.
we probably wish were never true. Like we wish that that thing never happened to us or we never did that thing. We're so ashamed of it,
Yeah.
and then they hide that. And but I find that there's so many emotions attached to that that when you share that thing, it like creates one of the deepest connections because it's just like the thing that we care or have the most amount of emotions toward will oftentimes create this powerful like connection within them as well because emotions are contagious, like, you know. And but when we hide that and then we talk about the weather, and I'm like, dude, or like how nice is it that COVID is over? It's like dude, like
Yeah.
talk about like, so I talk about that I with girls that I grew up without my dad. I talk
Mhm.
about how it made me feel so inferior that I tried all these ways to overcompensate, like getting great grades and trying to get into a good school and trying to even have a respectable career because I really wanted to, you know, well, prove that I never needed him, that I was able to do without him,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, I tell that to girls and they're like, whoa. And most guys are like, yo, check out, like, oh, my Ferrari is right there with my Rolex. Like, and it's like, dude, you look like a douchebag. Like this girl can't connect with you. Like you're
Mhm.
putting up a front. like drop the front. And so I think the biggest thing is, again, like the pretending to be someone you're not, like putting up a front, like you got to tear down these walls. And I think when you do that, people connect with you right away, and she falls in love with you. She wants to be your girlfriend. She wants to fly across the world to be with you with her own money to pay for a ticket that maybe she can't even really afford. But then there's a guy
Yeah.
who has a Rolex living right down the corner who's like willing to take her to fancy restaurants. She will not even text him back because she doesn't feel in love with him. Like she doesn't feel connected to him because that was a superficial connection, which only really attracted a few superficial girls who probably went and cheated on him later on because there was no emotional buy-in. Like she didn't care. So yeah, for me, like that's one of the biggest things still is like that no matter whether you want to hook up or whatever, like there has to be like a meaningful conversation if you want to get and keep her attention. And I think for us guys, we start to realize those conversations matter to us way more too. So
I think that's beautiful. That's really awesome. And I think there's a parallel there though, because the human element is still integral to something coming from it, right? Like in your case, it's the dating niche, if we were to just kind of like generalize the umbrella term. And then as far as what we kind of highlight inside of the consulting framework, right? So the backbone is organic marketing. And so, yes, you get scripts, or yes, I'm going to teach you how to think, but it doesn't change the fact you still have to go think. You still have to build rapport and a relationship and create that like
right.
connection with someone so that they feel invested in, yes, I trust that Chris can help me. Yes, I trust that Aiden knows what he's talking about. Yes, I trust that you're going to get me that transformation or that result. So I think that's really awesome because it directly correlates back to how you were saying your vision for yourself 5 years from now is that Chris Parker is this super savvy marketer, and I think it's pretty clear that your zone of genius is indeed that connection. So thanks so much for, taking the time to talk with me. As we wrap up, if you don't mind, I think our audience would love to know, like, where can they find you online? Do you have a website, or maybe you have certain social media handle that you're now using? You want to share that?
Well, it depends on when they're watching this because I might get banned again, you know. So hey, we'll have to update this with the new one. Hopefully it
Please.
shouldn't happen again. Hopefully it shouldn't happen again because realistically, like even that showed me how to like I could
Yeah.
improve from it and do things
What's your
better and
website?
smarter. But yeah, my social media is chrisparker.official on Instagram. And that's probably the best place to find me, or go to
Okay.
elitedatingstrategies.com. Yeah, and it's been a pleasure, honestly. I think signing up was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, and especially the entire environment or community that came along with it. So,
That's
thank you.
awesome. No problem. And thanks again for staying awake, because I know that you mentioned when we first started our call that you're not in New York right now, you're in Tel Aviv. So again, thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate you. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, or night in this case.
My night, yeah. Hey, well, my pleasure. All right. Well, hope other people found this valuable and not too rambly.